It was supposed to be just another writing club meeting, not a war zone. Yet the moment Evan saw Daniel across the table, his blood boiled the same way it always did. Maybe it was the smirk Daniel wore whenever he read his stories aloud. Or maybe it was because no matter how good Evan thought he was, Daniel always seemed to shine brighter. The club president had barely finished introducing the theme for the week before Evan raised his hand to speak. His tone sharp, his critique brutal. Daniel fired back with effortless calm, like always, and the rest of the club sat there enjoying the verbal fencing match they had grown used to. But Evan hated it. He hated the way Daniel always looked so composed, so untouchable, as if words weren't knives when they came from him. He hated the way Daniel's laugh lingered in the air after a sarcastic comment, making Evan's chest tighten with something he refused to name. Still, the truth was unavoidable. Their rivalry kept him coming back. After the meeting ended and students began leaving, Evan gathered his papers with trembling hands. He wasn't sure if it was from anger or something else entirely. Daniel's voice cut through the emptying room. "You'll wear yourself out if you keep trying so hard to one-up me, you know?" Evan froze, then looked up, meeting Daniel's gaze. His dark eyes glistened with something unreadable. "And you'll get soft if no one challenges you." Evan shot back. Daniel tilted his head, smiling faintly. "Maybe, but I wonder if that's what you're really doing. Challenging me. Or is it something else?" The question lingered like smoke in the air, and for the first time Evan couldn't form a clever reply. The University of Michigan campus was alive with autumn leaves crunching underfoot, students laughing on the lawn, the chill wind biting through sweaters. Evan walked briskly toward the library, clutching a notebook filled with drafts. He couldn't stop replaying Daniel's words from last night. Something else. What the hell had he meant? When Evan pushed open the heavy library doors, Daniel was already there. Of course he was. He sat near the window, golden light streaming across his blonde hair, scribbling into his notebook like the world outside didn't exist. Evan hated how beautiful that looked. He marched over, sat down opposite him, and slammed his own notebook open. Daniel didn't flinch. Instead, he glanced up with a sly grin. "Morning sunshine. Rough night." Evan glared, but Daniel chuckled softly, and the sound sent an unwanted warmth spiraling through his chest. They wrote in silence for a while, the tension between them thick and unspoken. Every time their knees brushed under the table, Evan's pen slipped. He cursed under his breath, and Daniel's quiet laughter only made it worse. Finally, Daniel leaned forward, lowering his voice. "You ever wonder why we fight so much?" Evan clenched his jaw. "Because you're infuriating." Daniel's smile softened into something gentler, almost sad. "Or maybe because it's easier to fight than admit what's really there." The words landed like a blow, and Evan's heart stumbled. He wanted to deny it, to argue, to say anything, but the truth was already written all over his face. And Daniel knew it. That night, Evan couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the way Daniel had looked at him in the library, like he was peeling back every layer Evan had built to protect himself. Terrified him. Thrilled him. It made him feel alive in a way nothing else did. The following week, during another club meeting, the tension became unbearable. The prompt had been to write a short piece about something you can't say out loud. Daniel read his story first. It was about a boy who hated his rival, hated the way his rival made his heart race, hated the way the sight of him ruined his focus, hated the way no matter how hard he tried couldn't stop wanting him. The room went quiet when Daniel finished. He closed his notebook, his expression calm, but his eyes flickered briefly to Evan. Just one look. Just enough. Evan's throat tightened. His hands shook as he picked up his own notebook, suddenly aware of how silent the room was, how everyone's eyes were on him. He read his piece, but the words blurred together. They weren't about anger. They weren't even about rivalry. They were about fear. About wanting something so badly you'd rather fight it than face it. When he finished, no one said a word. But Daniel was smiling at him. Not the arrogant, playful smirk Evan had grown used to, but a smile that felt like sunlight after weeks of rain. Evan couldn't breathe. Later that night, after the meeting, Evan found himself standing outside the dorm building, shoving his hands deep into his pockets. He had no reason to be there. No excuse, except one. Daniel opened the door before Evan could even knock. He stepped into the hallway, his cardigan hanging loosely off his shoulders, his hair messy from hours of writing. "Evan," Daniel said softly, like he had been expecting him all along. And in that moment, with the weight of their rivalry hanging between them and the secret neither dared to name pressing against their chests, Evan realized this wasn't just about words anymore. It was about everything they had been too afraid to say. Evan hadn't expected it to be so hard to speak. For years, words had been his weapon, sharp and controlled. But standing in the dim dorm hallway with Daniel watching him like that, he felt stripped of every defense. "I don't know why I'm here," he muttered, his voice raw. Daniel tilted his head, his smile gentle, patient. "Yeah, you do." The silence between them buzzed with all the unsaid things. Evan could hear his heartbeat pounding in his ears, faster than it should be. He should have walked away, should have let the moment slip like all the others, but his feet stayed rooted. Daniel reached out, his fingers brushing lightly against Evan's sleeve. It was barely a touch, but it felt like fire racing up his arm. "You don't have to fight me," Daniel whispered. "Not anymore." Evan's throat ached. He wanted to argue, to deny, to do anything but surrender. But when Daniel's hand slid down to catch his, Evan didn't pull away. For the first time, he didn't want to. The days that followed blurred together, a strange mix of secrecy and stolen moments. To everyone else, nothing had changed. They were still rivals in the club, still sparring over commas and metaphors, still trying to outshine each other on the page. But in the quiet, when no one was looking, the walls came down. A brush of hands under the library table. A lingering glance that lasted too long. A shared coffee cup, lips touching where the other had just sipped. It was reckless, dangerous, and it was everything Evan had ever wanted. Yet with every heartbeat came the weight of fear. The writing club wasn't just a circle of students, it was a stage, and rumors traveled fast. Evan knew what it would mean if people found out. Not just whispers in hallways, but judgment, laughter, maybe even rejection. He wasn't sure he was brave enough. One night, as they walked back from the library, Daniel stopped beneath the street lamp, the light catching in his hair. He looked at Evan, his expression unreadable. "Do you ever wonder what would happen if people knew?" Daniel asked softly. Evan froze. "If they knew? Us?" Daniel nodded. Evan swallowed hard. His first instinct was to deny, to bury it like he always did. But the truth slipped out before he could stop it. "I'm terrified." Daniel's smile faltered, his eyes darkening. "I am too. But sometimes I think, maybe it's worse, pretending we're nothing." The ache in Evan's chest was unbearable. He wanted to be braver, to reach out and hold Daniel right there under the lamplight. Instead, he whispered, "Just, not yet." Daniel studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Not yet. The final act of the semester came faster than either of them expected. The annual campus writing showcase. The entire club had been preparing for weeks, their best pieces polished and perfected to be read aloud before an audience of professors, alumni, and strangers. Evan had chosen a story about loneliness, about walls so high no one could climb them, about a boy who kept fighting because he didn't know how else to survive. Daniel's story was different. His was about love. Forbidden, fragile, hidden behind shadows, but love that refused to die, no matter how much the world tried to crush it. As Daniel read, Evan felt the words carve into him like a confession written in code only he could understand. And when Daniel's eyes flicked up, meeting his across the crowded room, Evan knew the story wasn't fiction. It was them. By the time the showcase ended, Evan could barely breathe. He left the auditorium, his chest tight, his legs carrying him blindly across campus. He ended up at the fountain, the night air biting against his skin. Running away again? Daniel's voice broke the silence. Evan turned, startled to see him there. Daniel's cardigan flapped lightly in the wind, his notebook tucked under one arm. He looked tired, but his eyes were steady. "I can't do this," Evan said hoarsely. Not out in the open. I don't know how. Daniel stepped closer, his voice quiet but firm. Then don't think about the world. Just think about me. Just think about us. Evan's hands trembled. His heart screamed yes, but his fear clawed at him. What if it all falls apart? Daniel reached out, cupping Evan's face in both hands, his touch grounding warm. Then let it. At least we'll know we tried. At least we'll know it was real. Something inside Evan broke. The walls he had clung to for so long finally crumbled. And before he could second-guess himself, he leaned forward, pressing his lips against Daniel's. The kiss was messy, desperate, filled with every ounce of fear and longing he'd buried. But when Daniel kissed him back, steady and sure, everything else fell away. For the first time, Evan felt free. Weeks later, the secret still remained theirs alone. In the club, they argued as fiercely as ever, trading jabs over syntax and metaphors. To anyone watching, nothing had changed. But under the table, their knees touched. In the library, their hands brushed. And in the quiet corners of campus, away from prying eyes, they found pieces of happiness no one could take from them. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't safe. But it was theirs. And for Evan, that was enough. Because sometimes the bravest stories aren't the ones you write on paper. They're the ones you dare to live. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.